sound? Shh. Okay, so as you're sitting, I'm just going to introduce our next segment. And like I said before, try to not do that one chair game. If you can please be a team. Because for every one chair, you're sending someone into the bleak abyss of the wings. Not necessarily. Maybe it's nice over there. I'm not going to disparage that. Okay. So our next subject is schools. And that will be introduced by Saskia Bos, who was here earlier this morning, who is curator, academic art historian, critical theorist, and dean of the School of Art here at Cooper Union. On the panel as well is Jakob Jakobsen, co-founder and first chair of the Young Art Workers Activist Collective in Denmark, and a primary organizing force behind the Copenhagen Free University since 2001. Members of the Bruce High Quality Foundation University. The Bruce High Quality Foundation is the official arbiter of the estate of the late social sculptor Bruce High Quality. The Bruce High Quality Foundation University is an unaccredited free art school in Tribeca. Delam Prizilik, like I mentioned, could not be here, unfortunately, due to visa issues. And finally, we'll have Learning Site, an art collective based in Copenhagen that produces site-specific projects informed by the local skills, resources, and knowledge of their host communities. So please join me in welcoming Saskia Bos.
Hello, welcome again. I was asked to talk about alternative art pedagogies in 15 minutes, but because contemporary art, as far as it is infected by the pedagogical turn, sometimes seems to be stuck in the present, and because I'm not just a curator but also an art historian, I will try to perform a chronological Houdini act. You will find details that are cobbled together and find out about how Cooper's history is entangled with the histories of art education, find out about the Bauhaus, or what you knew already, and Black Mountain College. You'll hear a cross-pollination of institutional and personal histories touching on the interaction of art and social reality. And in the end, I hope that the thread through the talk is clearly about how schools are the mediators, transmitters of this possibility of education, and maybe how it runs parallel to a history of empowerment. But as I said, we have only 15 minutes, so here we go. Hold on to your seats. For a trip about art education through the centuries. Art school is a male thing, at least that is what it used to be. You're looking at a typical art and architecture class at Cooper Union at the beginning of the past century, apart from a few now very recognized women, such as the 17th century Dutch still life painter Rachel Ruijs and her contemporary Italy's Ambrosia Gentileschi. Yeah. Yes, you got it? Very few women studied art professionally. This is a self-portrait by Ambrosia Gentileschi that she painted in the first half of the 17th century, long before bourgeois family ideals, as we now know, became fashionable, telling young women to stay at home with the children. And in the early 19th century, it got even worse, as women were not supposed to be enrolled to become artists. In the meantime, the life of the artist had become the life of a grand seigneur. This is the artist studio by Gustave Courbet, 1855, famous painting from the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, showing both a woman in the audience, watching, as well as a nude model, or female muse, the two typical female roles in this century of bourgeoisie, even when portrayed by a so-called bohemian artist, Courbet, the woman recedes or is no longer an author. This manifesto painting, refused by the Salon jury, was the highlight of the one-man exhibition organized by Courbet alongside the 1855 Universal Exhibition. Amongst the many portrayed on the right-hand side, you will see Baudelaire absorbed in a book. Does this work? Yeah, yes, okay. But as early as 1859, at the opening of Cooper Union, women artists were accepted at the Women's School of Art. Classes were offered during the day. The night school of art for men did not begin offering classes until around 1884. In this picture from the early 20th century, the women, are drawing still lifes and classical sculptures as they were supposed to. Figure drawing from life was still for men only. It looks like the reality of art school is still a purely white affair, but from the 1860s onward, so-called colored persons had been admitted, and women were first. This is Cooper Union again, where women artists are portraying a nude model that is African American. So this image distorts history a bit in the sense that the women of color were not only models, but also fully accepted art students. In the early 1920s, one African American woman rushed through the foundation program. She apparently finished the academy in just 3 years, and she was so extremely talented. Here is a work by this female artist, Augusta Savage, who graduated from Cooper Union and started her artist studio in Harlem in the 30s. Just for your amusement, here are a few more vintage, I don't seem to do this well, a few more vintage photos from Cooper Union's archives. Do not forget that Cooper Union was offering full scholarships from the very start in 1859, and admission was purely merit-based. And if I'm not mistaken, that form of idealism leading to free education never got much of a following in the rest of the United States. Talking about idealism, there was a desire in Europe by many artists and designers after World War I to create a new and better world, and at the so-called Bauhaus, bold colors distinguished functional and structural components, and they bear the influence of the De Stijl movement, whose spokesperson Theo van Doesburg taught private classes in Weimar to Bauhaus students. This is a poster for the Bauhaus that started in 1919 in Weimar. A look at the Bauhaus. Not used to this thing. What am I doing wrong? Guys, I need my next. I get more time, right? If this doesn't work. So a look at the Bauhaus. Predominantly male professors teach many interdisciplinary fields. Feininger, Kandinsky, Oskar Schlemmer, Georg Mach, and Paul Klee. The accompanying text is funny. It says, when the great artists of the Bauhaus assembled for social occasions other than costume parties, they looked like bankers or school teachers. They deliberately avoided self-conscious bohemianism. So the lifespan of this school represented 3 very different directorships. At the Bauhaus, this is the metal workshop, artists, Moholy-Nagy and female colleagues. As you know, the Nazis did not tolerate very long this free-thinking art school. Many members of the school left Germany to take up positions at important educational institutions in America, including Gropius. Gropius went to Harvard, and Mies van der Rohe and Joseph Albers came to Yale in 1950. This is a theoretical diagram of what we now would call the integrated curriculum. And here you see the results of the diagram. Instruction at the Bauhaus was initially provided in sculpture, metalwork, cabinetry, printmaking, and weaving. And now to Black Mountain College in North Carolina, which was to become influenced by Bauhaus. Before those professors came, this was still quite a provincial affair. Classes were held in the mornings and evenings. For entertainment, there was after-dinner dancing on Saturday night. And here's one of those Bauhaus professors, Joseph Albers, teaching. And although the founders of Black Mountain College did not opt for a rigid educational doctrine, they did have strong feelings and ideas about education. The college was to be owned and operated by the faculty. A board of fellows was made up of faculty, and 1 student formed the central governing body. graduation was based on achievements of a project, and academic bookkeeping, grades and quality points as a measure of an education were abolished. You saw this slide. Again, Joseph Albers teaching, and with crossed arms, apparently Robert De Niro's father. I didn't want you to miss that. 1944, of the special summer sessions at Black Mountain College, their professors would be Willem de Kooning, Amédée Ozenfant, Feininger, Robert Motherwell, and Fanny Hillsmith. Robert Rauschenberg at Black Mountain College, next to a picture of another big man. And as the college reputation as a unique environment for the arts spread, more and more students enrolled. Among them Arthur Penn, Kenneth Noland, Rauschenberg, John Cage, Merce Cunningham, Willem de Kooning, Buckminster Fuller. They all taught there mainly in the summers in 1948, this picture. Seems to have been taken. And yeah, as it goes very quick. Sorry, I have to skip a little bit. We're going very quickly here. So in Europe, there was Zero, there was Cobra, but they were not schools. So then came Beuys, whose tenure at Düsseldorf Academy was initially meant a democratic turn, but it was still called Klasse Beuys. We'll speak about that maybe. Joseph Beuys, seemingly hearing impaired, at a gathering in Amsterdam for his Free International University. And Joseph Beuys on the cover of an education magazine that reads Über Beuys, a contraption of Über, about Beuys, and the good old Freudian Über idea. Beuys on the lawns of the Friedrichianum with the work of Richard Serra in the back. And then another famous person in, you could say, education through art, maybe I should tell it that way, Broodhuis, who you may know. He did not have a school, but he criticized museums for their conservatism and snootiness, while opening up a public space in his own studio to discuss art. And here he is from the back with a text about the La Fontaine fable of the raven and the fox, and here a picture of Broodhuis, the man with the profile of an eagle, an animal that, by the way, permeates his work as a strong power symbol, and he's writing words on a blackboard that could read National and Academy. But he doesn't seem to want to finish them. Both concepts, nation and academy, are equally under erasure, as one could say. Hans Haacke, for more than 30 years, a professor here at Cooper Union. And this is a photograph made by Hans Haacke in 1957, again at Documenta. Kandinsky in the back, two students with their back turned to the painting. They seem to be from a conservative fraternity, as Hans told me. And he didn't consider that photo as art, but nowadays these vintage photographs of the late 50s are part and parcel of Haacke's work. And again, a picture of Hans lecturing. And this is another big man in the alternative art education, John Baldessari, who was one of the first artists with Michael Asher and Alan Capro, Judy Chicago and Miriam Shapiro to join CalArts. And John is famous for saying, you can't teach art. That's my premise. You have to set up a situation. When CalArts started, we just eliminated grades. We had pass-fail. You can't use grades as punishment, to attend class or do this or that. Here, a work by Baldessari, a studio with lookers-on, and another early Baldessari. So can you read it? I hope you can. So, in creating that CalArts, Baldessari wasn't a lonely cowboy like Beuys. He collaborated on CalArts with female colleagues like Judy Chicago and Miriam Shapiro, who were staunch and unwavering feminists. So by the 70s, female students and students of color were long integrated. A balance between arts and crafts, even between arts and visual cultures, seemed to have been found. But it seems that the individual did not seek to be a hero or heroine any longer. Collectives made it possible to collaborate and support common ideals. And as you heard also this morning, the Artists Workers Coalition had happened. And in the 80s and 90s, we remember from the US ACT UP, Grand Fury, the Guerrilla Girls, critical art ensemble. And because in this context, this weekend, we will be having Superflex N55 or their hairs. And Osabenga Jones, I will just give one example, which I think is very important in the history of the collective, and that is group material. You're looking at a poster made in 1985 that featured in a show 2 years later at White Columns. The poster showed an image of the funeral of a United Democrat Front organizer killed by South African police. I'm including a few images of the work of group material just to state how exhibitions can be taking a stand when the artists have formed an alliance based on contact, and there doesn't need to be a curator to add or illustrate anything theoretical. As a matter of fact, many artists, as you know, are allergic to that idea. And it's also an early manifestation, I think, in '87 for what now has been called the educational turn. So let me go to my closing remarks. I have to skip a few slides, but you'll be looking at this one if you don't mind, because we'll be talking through them. Artist collectives are significant to the artist practice because of the increased collective intelligence made possible by the cross-combination of multiple creative minds. That speaks for itself. Also, I think it is a sign of our times in which individualism is juxtaposed to other opportunities and modes of being in the world, depending on what society seems to be needing. A collective endeavor, maybe, in which research of the social ramifications of art are key and socially engaged practices have the potential to give their responses to the realities of today's world. It's a question maybe for our panel today. Thanks very much.